This Honorable House now resumes. Please be seated. I call on the Honorable Member from Northside to continue his debate.
Mr. Speaker, when we took the break, I was pointing out the fact that I'm not one of those who's convinced that we need to spend a couple of $100 million to build cruise berths. Because even if it's $100 million, it's way too much. And Mr. Speaker, if the cruise industry and the business people, Georgetown, are so convinced that building these two docks is going to so tremendously increase the amount that each tourist spends and the length of time they stay, then they should build the docks themselves and don't bother the government at all, because they're going to be the ones that get the benefit. Well, then somebody on your side get up and announced a couple of days ago that cruise passengers increasing. And then, Madam Speaker, we see this situation where it appears that by the time this budget is over, we would have spent close to $5 million on this port and wouldn't even have plans for what we're going to do. I don't understand how we can do a $2.5 million EIA if we don't know what we're going to build. Because certainly, whatever we build is going to directly affect the environment. So how we can do an EIA before we know what and how we're going to build what we intend to build is beside me. Maybe we'll spend another $1 million to revise it after we get the plans. But, Mr. Speaker, I contend that there are things that we can do that will have minimal cost to the government, very little cost, that will greatly enhance the experience of every cruise passenger that comes here. And that's what we should be doing. Improve the quality and the quantity of the tenders that we use. Make the passage from the ship in the stream, that is where they're anchored, to the dock, an educational experience for the tourists. Put some greenery on the dock. We can do that in huge concrete containers that can be moved. We got forklifts down, they can pick up 4 to 5 foot containers, tons of them. Not a difficult thing to do. Dress up some retired Caymanians in old Cayman clothes and have them walking around there, informing the tourists about Cayman and directing them. A couple of months ago, I was in Kingston and New Kingston, walking up to the bank, and there was a policeman dressed in not the usual black pants and plate stripe uniform, but what I don't remember the term, but his role in that area was to simply assist and look out for the tourists and help you find what you wanted to do. It was a comforting experience for me to be approached by somebody like that, particularly in Kingston, and feel that they were spending some comfort. But what we do is we have all these security officers down, they dress up in white shirts and all this stuff and intimidating and frightening everybody, and they can't do anything about anything. Mr. Speaker, I believe that the greatest leap of faith in the whole throne speech is this statement that Cayman Health City is already the vanguard of international healthcare industry in the region. Now, Madam Speaker, there are some well-recognized healthcare institutions in these regions that have been around a long time. And as I pointed out earlier, I haven't observed the number of international patients that were going to be flying in and were lined up in America waiting to come down once they got this facility built. And I have some concerns, and I want to alert the Minister of Finance, who is responsible for Cineco. Be very careful that Cineco and the government is not cajoled or pushed into signing any agreements with that institution on their published rates today, simply to buy local. And when I looked at all the jobs that were advertised, I thought it was supposed to be cancer, cardiac, and orthopedics. But I see I'm advertising for dentists too. Kind of indicate to me that it could be more of a general practice clinic. And I had a strange experience this last week. My mother went by ambulance to the hospital with pain in her chest. Of course, those brilliant folks just gave her some oxycodone to kill the pains at her home. But my father approached me yesterday and said, well, because I told him I was going to make arrangements to take her to the heart place on 7 Mile Beach, just to make absolutely sure there wasn't anything wrong. He said, oh, no, but I think we can go straight up to Health City. I think you can go up and walk right in. Point I'm making, Mr. Speaker, my father didn't make that up. Somebody told him so. But that's not what's supposed to have been happening. But I have always said that my concern about Health City Cayman was my experiences in the business told me that their business formula couldn't work. And my concern is that if it doesn't work, they only have one choice, and that is to capture the $40 to $50 million that the government is currently spending overseas for cardiac, cancer, and orthopedic care. And even if they cut rates, if they were giving you cut rates, well, I can tell you without fear of successful contradiction, and when it comes to Finance Committee, with the permission of the Minister of Finance, who will be chairman of that, I intend to summon the CEO of Cineco here and drill down and ask some questions, and then we'll see whether it is affordable health care or not. The current information the EIU brings to me is that right now their published fees is between 20 and 30% on cardiac procedures of what's available in Florida and that other institution they use in Mid-America and Kansas. And the one thing we don't want to do, Mr. Minister of Health, is to wind up with a fiasco with them, like how we got with 3Ts in the MR at the hospital. Because you hear about a catastrophe that was that. And I have the evidence, and I can bring it out in Finance Committee, that even for the same CPT code, they are charging the HSA and Cineco different rates and more expensive than competitors in town. My information is that Cineco could fly somebody to Kingston, get the MRI done. If they had to stay overnight, they could stay overnight, and they could still do it cheaper than what they're doing up the floor. Then, of course, we have the other side of it, is that it was supposed to be a particular piece of equipment. It was supposed to be installed in operation from September last year. Not operational today. But we're charging these expensive rates that was agreed about. And then there's this curious thing that the HSA gets back 20% of whatever fees they send to them. Now, something wrong with that formula, because that's a perfect incentive for abuse. Because the incentive from the HSA is to overuse the facility because they get more 20%. If they can give them 20% discount, they take it off the fee, that's in the story, and compete at that level. So, when we see statements in the throne speech, such as of which the governor was justly proud, on the health too has a role to play in determining quality of life. I agree with that. In particular, the rate to succeed. Accordingly, the government will seek an overseas partner for the Health Services Authority to facilitate training, improve access to services, and maximize efficiencies. Now, that could be difficult to accomplish, because I will advise the Minister of Health that any foreign entity that offers to come and be a partner in that mess you got up there is coming for the wrong reasons, and it's not going to be for the benefit of the people that came on. Here are some of the things you don't have that you can have put in place, which, by the way, I left there in 1992. And that famous national team government went in and threw out the baby, the bathwater, and everybody. Right? Full set of medical staff bylaws. You're going to only be able to privilege the doctors according to their credentials. What does that mean? The obstetrician will be privileged to practice obstetrics. He's not going to be allowed to practice cardiology. Medical audit, peer review, in order to ensure quality assurance. Medical director that is elected by his peers, not appointed by the governor, by the government, and paid by the government. Total waste of government money. But we're talking here in the governor's speech about helping with training, but we're spending money in the budget to help with internships. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to talk about that a little bit. Now, any Caymanian who is forced or made to believe that coming back here to do his internship at this hospital, rather than a proper teaching hospital, is being given a disservice not only to himself, but to the Caymanians that he might go in to treat. Because there is very little opportunity and very little example and very little demonstration of quality assurance that could train a Caymanian in internships for medicine. So we need to make up our mind which way we want to go. Now, Mr. Speaker, the governor also makes a very, again, I hope this is like the business about the new airport. Let me see if I can find it, because it's hard to find anything good just to say, you know, and I'm trying real hard, so. Oh, there we go. Establishing what I hope will be a model for future development. The developers, government, and the National Trust recently came together to agree the best route for the proposed extension of the East-West Arterial Road. Now, Mr. Speaker, we need to talk about this National Trust a little bit. I was shocked. I'm working with the minister responsible for roads to try to get some farmland opened up in Northside. and so that nobody can say it, and I don't want to get in the same position the premier with roads. My mother and father own a piece of land we would try and get a farm road store. If my father don't decide to disinherit it, I hope to inherit a piece of it down the road. So I declare my interest up front. But all the landowners are giving the land to government for free. But this idea that the National Trust can convince government not to use National Trust land, but to put the road on private land that is going to cost government money to buy. And it's not a situation, Mr. Speaker, where there's a huge difference in the kind of land, you know. One parcel of land that they're putting the road on is almost exactly the same as a parcel of land that a road would have been on for the National Trust. But here's the problem we have with the National Trust, and what successive governments have allowed the National Trust to morph itself into. Because, Mr. Speaker, them people who administer the National Trust don't think that our land, you know. They don't regard that as land to the people of the Cayman Islands held in trust by a corporate entity called the National Trust. They regard that as their land. And you know something it is? The way the law is now, it's their land. Because when they make it, you know, I don't want to run astray here now, so let me quote a section of the law. Section 21. Any property acquired by the trust by any means which is eligible for placement on the Heritage Register under the bylaws of the trust may be declared inalienable by the council, not cabinet, by the National Trust Council. We all know what inalienable means. That's not the troubling part. Property which has been declared inalienable by the council may be alienated only after a 2/3 vote of the full membership of the trust at a general meeting, and only for the reasons that so doing will further the purposes of the trust. They can decide amongst their members, because Caymanians no longer subscribe to it. I'm a life member, I haven't been to a meeting in 20 years. Because when they were trying to rezone all of the farmland in north side into useless environmental zones, I brought 25 people, landowners, to a National Trust meeting. Everyone of them paid the $25, and they wouldn't allow them to vote. So there's no Northside District Trust. And I don't believe there's any other districts that I'm aware of. But the point is that they can themselves can decide to take the land and sell it. And the government has no input, can't stop it, and no return from it. And here's what they do now, you know, Mr. Speaker. They don't interfere with that man down the road that begins with T and ends with T, begins with D and ends with T. What he want to do, he simply write him a check. Donation. They go north side. Most of the land they're buying up is estate land. So when the family tries to divide it amongst its members, the government tells them, well, and the surveyor tells them that you can't subdivide this land unless you got a 30-foot road. So none of them don't have no 30-foot road. Most of them have a 6-foot path, right? So they can't subdivide the land on the children. And it's not something that I dreamt up. I just went through the process in government. I went to a surveyor and asked him, we wish to divide a 40-acre parcel of land into 4 10-acre lots. No intention to develop the land. So there's a number, you can't, land and survey not going to prove that unless you got a 30-foot right away from wherever the road is now, all the way to the land. You got to have an easement from all these people 30 feet. So that not happen. Anyway, as usual, I don't give up so often. So I went to planning. I says, why can't I apply to you to subdivide this parcel into 4 pieces? Clear understanding, there's no application to develop the property. You just want to subdivide it into 4 parcels. Why do I need a 30-foot road when all I continue to do is go up in there, get a couple of mangoes off it during mango season? The 6-foot road is fine with me. The planning has said that if I write a letter explaining that, they will consider it, approving it with a 30-foot road. Because I told them if he ain't doing it, I need to know, because I can bring a motion down here to change whatever we need to change in lands and survey law to allow people and families that have large parcels of land to subdivide the land amongst their children without having to have a 30-foot right away. So we'll see how it goes. So the National Trust goes to these people, tells them, well, you know, you got this piece of land here, it's 30 acres. Can't get it subdivided because they don't have a 30-foot road, but you can divide the money. So of course, it's an ease out for the administrators of the estate. So it's okay, we'll sell it. Yeah, but now you got to understand that, you know, you don't have no right of way. So the price got to come down. And what it means to my district, with 20 or 30% of the undevelopable arable land owned by the National Trust, there's no place for the next generation of Northsiders to live. And don't talk about we can go on the land now and pull it the top out, the thatch tree, to plant a basket, because that's a $5,000 fine under the National Trust law and a year in jail. Or cut a piece of mahogany limb to make some candle holders for your wife for Christmas. Or even pick a mango, because it says removing anything on National Trust property. And the National Trust was never established to go out and solicit land. The National Trust was established to try and protect certain things that the people who wanted them, who owned them, protected them. The late national hero Jim Borden, I was here. The leader of the opposition was in this parliament when the bill was passed. Specifically asked the late Sir Vassell Johnson, does this give the National Trust power to go and buy people land? And we were given the assurance in committee that that would not happen. We tried very hard to remove the ability for the National Trust to purchase land, because my argument was simple. If land needs to purchase, the government purchase it. But we've allowed these people now to set up this whole regime where they can take donations from any developer. He can do anything in Georgetown that he wants to land, and you don't hear, as my grandmother said, "Tahe," from the National Trust. When last you see the National Trust out here demonstrating about an environmental matter? We had, I think it was one of the patches of rushes removed a couple years ago, and it was some out there to stop them from removing the rushes. No, bought a piece of land up East End that had rushes on it. So they're quite happy for, in some instances, they're a family, you know, to enjoy the economic benefit from utilization of their land, because they bought a piece from the country people up in the north side, and that's all we need. And Mr. Speaker, I give the government due warning. I'm going to bring the private member's motion to amend the National Trust law. Now, it's up to the government whether they don't support it or not. But I'm going to make it my business in every forum I get to tell the people of Northside, please do not sell the National Trust anymore of Northside land. Because you are depriving future generations of that district the opportunity to have a place to live. Because it's only so much land we have up there. But they are so powerful, they can get the government to move a main arterial highway off of their land onto private land that by law government will have to offer compensation depending on value gained or value lost to private owners when the government can't use the government land. But when last have any of us seen any advocacy by the National Trust out in public against any development going on? But it's the usual story. Do anything you want on the Western Peninsula. We can take it back from the country people. And they're the ones who have preserved and protected all these years. It'll be very interesting because of bringing a petition to the Minister of Roads to remove the planned connector road to the east-west arterial way from going through the wonderful, quaint little Hutland village, to move it to come in at Driftwood Village and link up with the roundabout for the east-west arterial way at Lookout. Now I know they could be jumping up and down and hollering about all of them nutrient-laden fresh water that runs out of the central mangrove and feeds fish. Well, I don't know where they come from, but the fish that outside can't live in fresh water. And you know, Mr. Speaker, we went through this exercise a couple of years ago. We had one, I won't call his name because it doesn't deserve to be called, but he went down in white mud, hung up one of them yellow construction buckets in one tree. I went back a couple of days later and measured the water on it and how many leaves had dropped in it and what color the water was. And on the basis of that, he calculated the water flow from the wetlands into the North Sound and how much nutrients it was bringing with it. Well, because of, he went to Rotary. No, this is just a fact. You can ask the Rotarians. He went to Rotary and presented these statistics. And Mr. Harry Chisholm was there. And Mr. Harry Chisholm got up and challenged him and said, okay now, I'm listen to him now. I'm going to listen to Ezra come back here next week now to come out and argue this. So I went to the Weather Bureau. I got the rainfall records, all that exist in Cayman, went back to 1954. The lowest rainfall for any year was 1958. Boy, we had plenty of mangroves down there then. Right? Even if you assume that the whole wetlands was flooded, no water evaporated given the annual rainfall, right? The wetlands would have been bigger than the state of California to produce the oil flow that he wanted. But he's a scientist, so he come down here and tell us things, and oh, that's a great idea, and we give him the awards from the Queen, we give him this, and he writes a couple of books, and he's the most intelligent person in the world. My grandfather tells me, and I'm sure you fellas from West Bay have had similar stories. They remember sitting at one point on the beach, and you can watch the lobsters crawling out from the little sound certain times of the year, particularly in the rainy season. You know why? They're running from the fresh water coming from the mangroves. You can carry a lobster home tonight, catch him live, put him in your kitchen. Tomorrow morning he's still live. Put 3 drops of fresh water on him. He dead in half hour. But these people come down, you know, and you got to hear all this now because this road that we north siders want, because the east-west arterial way don't help us. Like I help Mr. Ardem in East End. But don't shorten our travel to Georgetown. Come in by Driftwood Village, come through the wetlands, link up to the roundabout at Lookout behind the police station in Bordentown. That'll do 2 wonderful things on our side. Shorten our distance, we save gasoline. Because we don't get the Brixton Cayman Brackers gets up there, although we drive 3 times as far from every year. And it'll take all of that drunk driving traffic out of the district of Northside and Old Man Bay, the village of Northside and Old Man Bay, every Saturday and Sunday evening. And they'll go down to that swamp, they won't run off in that swamp, that's fine. Because we don't have no police to come up there to monitor it, right? Mr. Speaker, a big part of my responsibility in these chambers while I'm here, is to look out for the next generations of Northsiders. Part of that looking out is stopping the National Trust from doing what they're doing. Because I'm not the only one in Northside that believes that when it suits them, they'll find a reason to sell it. And unless we change the law, we can't stop them. Now, Mr. Speaker, the governor also mentioned this wonderful, elusive event of e-government initiatives. Every government for the last 20 years had had all these wonderful plans about e-government. I can distinctly remember a lady, I think her name was Cheryl Gorchick, who was head of computer services, come into Executive Council in 1990 for $2 million to buy computers for government, because by 1992 government was going to be paperless. Hasn't happened. We have used more paper, employed more people by computerizing. But here is one thing that I believe the government could do right now, no additional expense. I'll give you one example. Somebody needs to apply for a gun license. They have to get a police record. They have to go to the police station, carry their passport, fill out the application form, pay $25, and come back the next day to get it. Why can't the police electronically look at my police record, charge me the same $25 and add that onto my gun license fee? But just simply look at the record. My police record is clear. Charge me the $25, give me the license. You go to land registry to transfer something for love and affection. You need a birth certificate, you need a marriage certificate. You got to get up out of your chair, walk across to the hall, pay $25 for each one, right? If you know the people there, they give you the service right away, otherwise you might not come back the next day if you press for time. Why can't Lands and Survey look at registry records? Yes, Ezra is the son of Nate Miller. Yes, he is married. The name corresponds with here. But in addition to the marriage license, because they look at the wife's name before you got married, which is on the license, you can't go get a JP to sign it to say it's the same person. This is the kind of things that causes inefficiencies in government that we can change tomorrow. Tomorrow. Don't cost a dime more. In fact, you will save money because you will have to print all those forms. Same thing, you carry a truck to the licensing department to license it. Because it's owned by a company, must have a certificate of good standing. Go on the computer, see that it's in good standing, issue the driver's license. Why should the customer have to get up and come Georgetown, pay for that, charge them for it? You save the paper, you print it and all that kind of stuff, But no, we got to look for more greater things, But oftentimes, it is the little things that we can do that will make a big impact on people's lives. But I just think that those are some of the things we could do. Now, Mr. Speaker, mental health. Mental health needs a lot of attention. First of all, we have to agree it's a disease and it's not somebody full of the devil. We got to insist that insurance companies cover it. Treatment, outpatient, inpatient. Then we can involve the private sector to produce the relevant services. And that's a simple amendment, again, to the health insurance law. But, you know, for some reason, every government since 1992 caters to the health insurance industry. Health insurance industry argument is, well, no, we can't do this, we're not making any money. We're not making any money. We're doing this as a favor for the people of the Cayman Islands. Making any money. We can't carry these high-risk people. Government got to pay for them. But if you look at the SEMA Annual Report 2013, interesting facts. Premiums collected for health insurance, 171,865,000. Underwriting, total underwriting expenses, only 133,433,000. Profit, 10 million. But we as politicians who have the power to change the law, listen to them, they ain't making no money. So what do we allow them to do? First of all, no insurance company in the Cayman Islands offers group health. Everybody offers individual plans discounted on volume. Because when you offer group health, you come into a company, you take the total staff, and you put the risk over the demographics, and you decide what the premium is. That's not what we do here. We allow the insurance companies to come into the company and say, well, we'll take everybody else except Ezra Miller. He's 50 pounds overweight. He's high risk. We're not taking him. And then Mr. Arden goes to the doctor a week later, and he's diagnosed with hypertension, but we're not covering him no more either. So we allow the private insurance companies to take the creme de la creme, cover only the health of people, and allow this utter madness where the government accepts from a private insurance company a $10 contribution to cover a person that they won't cover for $700. And we do nothing about it. They used to get by saying, well, we're an American-based company, and you know, we don't cover high-risk people, and we don't do it. Obamacare took care of all that. They're covering them now. But what we do, we create a local government-owned insurance company that all of these people are dumped in, and we collect this measly little $10 and $20, whatever it is now, and we cover all the high-risk people, we cover all the indigents, we cover all the civil servants, and we don't even require that that company operates like a proper insurance company. Because if you look in the budget figures, you will see that for pensioners, government is paying a premium of almost $1,000 per person per month. But for indigents, the premium is only 600 and something. And the premium for the health of civil servants, which is by far the most, you know, is what, 400 or 500? That's not how health insurance or any insurance is supposed to work. You're supposed to take everybody, spread the risk, and actually compute a premium to cover everybody. But we seem to be quite willing to simply dump $19 million for pensioners, another $10 million for seamen and veterans, or $9 million, whatever it is, and a couple of million for this and a couple of million for that. Don't require anything. Then we have the other preposterous situation where Syneco is paying the bill. Syneco has negotiated with certain providers for certain benefits, but the doctors decide which provider you go visit. Again, something wrong with that equation. The doctor should make the clinical decision the person needs to go. Cynical, based on its contractual relationships and their satisfaction that you will get quality, should decide where you go. But we got situations where we require the Minister of Health to sign off on certain things. The only thing worse than that, well, I remember it, is this JP training we all just went through. And we have people, particularly one person, training, who had absolutely no idea what he was training about. But we brought him here in 1990 to do a 6 months O&M study. He hasn't, I don't know that he ever completed that study because I don't remember seeing the results of it. And he's still here. And every time he looked, he gone one level higher. One level higher. I tell you right now, I'm going to resign my appointment as a JP. Because it is being converted into something that it was never intended to be. It used to be a position of honor that you earned by being a respectable member of your society and up in age. Now, it is the way, almost the way to be a notary public without having to pay the fee. Because they tell me that if I'm in Georgetown and one of my constituency has to leave in a hurry and comes and gives me a passport, picture, sign, unless I got that numbered stamp that he gave me, which can't fit on a passport picture, to put on it, I can't sign it. And I got to record in a couple of pieces of paper every transaction I did, and we know how papers can disappear in government. So you take all your papers, turn them into the courthouse. Somebody decides these 2 sheets don't mean anything wrong with, then you broke a law. At least provide the JP with a proper bound book that a page can't be removed of, that is not obvious. And I am not going to support the government changing the judicial law to allow cabinet to make regulations about the judiciary. Because I believe there's a real reason why the current judicial law does not allow cabinet to make regulations. In my view, that's an opportunity for cabinet to interfere in the judicial system. And we might say it'll never happen. You guys might do it, you know. But it can happen. I'm not going to support it. And they're training me on the regulations that doesn't exist. But the regulations are dated regulations 2013. And they're telling me I got to comply with these regulations, but they're not law. And there's no possibility of making them law unless you change the law. Then, of course, you know, I just can't keep out of trouble. Propose this stamp that you stamp. I certify this to be a true copy of the original. But I had to go and ask the question, what is stamp going to say? I don't know. I beg your pardon. You're training me. You're making a stamp to give me, but you don't know what the stamp going to say. They say, no, I don't know what the stamp is going to say. So I said, well, here's my problem. When I was trained by the magistrate in 2004 when I got the appointment, I was told I could not certify a document that it is a copy of the original. Even if the document was marked original, because only the person who prepared the original document could make that certification. I could certify it as a copy of the document presented to me. But even if it says original, with these computer ability these days, you can put original in thing. I was told by the registry trainers that you can say it is a true copy of the document presented to me. But you can't say it is a copy of the original, because you didn't make the original, so you cannot prove that's the original. I raised that with him. He got very disgusted, Came back the next day, gave everybody else in the room one of the stamps except me. So I don't have no stamp that says certified original. And these are the kinds of things, that's a total waste of government money. We passed a law here for notary publics that lawyers are exempt. Yet on the course with me is eminent legal minds like David Rich in this country, who has to have what, 35, 36, 40 years in the legal fraternity here, and he being trained as a JP by somebody don't know what he's talking about. And unless we make it an offense that anybody who uses that stamp with my number, then I'm not taking the responsibility for that number I handed in my appointment. Mr. Speaker, waste management. We're taking it away. Mr. Speaker, waste management is a topical thing. I see all over the press that the country has never had a waste management policy. I can promise you, Mr. Speaker, I left the waste management for 10-year waste management implementation plan and policy in place when I was kicked out of government in 1992. And, Madam Speaker, we can go to Timbuktu and back. There's only two things we can do. There's only one thing we can do, reduce the volume. And there's only two ways to reduce the volume. Recycling, reuse, whatever that they want to put on it now, and education, and burn the balance of the waste that comes into the landfill. That's the only two things we can do. I left a study in place by Post Buckle and Schuler, done in 1992, the 10-year plan. I put the plastic liner, the thermoplastic liner in Little Cayman in 1992. And it would have been put in Cayman Brack in 1993. But we spent too much time building roads trying to find a piece of land. And if my memory serves me right, it was supposed to go in Georgetown landfill in 1995 or 96. And I bought the 45 acres for the expansion of the thing. And that is what the plan for. We started recycling in 1992. We're still doing recycling. But all of a sudden now, all of these studies, all of these surveys, and we're putting this process now through this huge, elaborate, expensive process that costs us $4 million, and we can only come back to those two decisions, you know? And what are we blaming? FFR. Everything is responsible to the FFR these days. FFR is no more than common sense. All of that was done in 1992.
In 2006 too?
But all of a sudden now, we don't have any local expertise that knows anything about it. So I see this piece of paper where it's sent out, published by the Ministry of Health. But I don't have it here. What the title of it is again? OSO. But the objective there is the most oxymoronic statement any government could ever make in history. That we are going to deliver a proper waste management system in this country with neutral cost. It's impossible to do that. So don't fool the people by telling them strategic outline case, SOC, by telling them that the main objective is to have a modern waste management facility that ain't gonna cost us no more. The fifth elected member from Georgetown mentioned privatization of garbage collection. Tried that in 1992. I was the stupid politician who put the $25 per house on garbage, you know. Right? Also the one that quadrupled the hospital fees and all that too. Right? I tried to privatize garbage in 1992. We were paying, the household paying $25 a year. My memory serves me correct. The lowest bid was $50 per household per month. $600 versus $25. Is the $600 unreasonable? Of course not. So don't tell the public that we're going to spend $4 million to design a system, but it's going to cost them no more. Tell them the truth. We have to address the solid waste problem, and as the 5th elected member from Georgetown, the people going to have to pay for it. If you want your house garbage picked up 3 times a week, which by the way, no, I said that was only once and may not happen, you got to pay for it. We made, in my view, the UDP made the mistake of adding 2% on to duty and replace the household garbage fee. But it doesn't seem like the garbage people, I guess I should call them the solid waste management people, that's just more politically correct. Can't use the word garbage anymore. Doesn't seem to be getting that money because there's a mess. But if we're collecting that kind of money now, what's that? Somewhere in the region of 8-10 million a year, 2% of your total income from duty. You know. And we have to charge the people like the hotels who sometimes, when I was there, we were having to pick up compressible containers from them twice a day. But they're paying the same thing as a little condo. That has to be prorated up per ton of the garbage. And if I drive up in my truck, I must go on the weight scale and pay the fee. Do not make the people believe that we have any magic to do this thing with. And the government can no longer bear the costs. Members of the public will have to pay it. Tell them the truth. And stop all this studying. Just get on with it. Put out the RFP. What has changed since the last election? The only person changed is the Minister of Health, you know. It's the same civil servants who advised the previous minister to tender an RFP for waste energy.
Based on my study.
Exactly, and other studies, right? But that was the right thing to advise that minister. But all of a sudden now, to keep themselves employed, they're going to go through another 2 years, another $4 million in studies. And you know something? Most of them we present in that study thing don't mean nothing to them. They don't have the academic or experience background to determine whether it's a good study or not.
At least I will get somebody to it.
So, Mr. Minister, I felt a beg you. Let's get on with fixing. That's the guy who calls up Rooster all the time. Fix the dump now, fix the dump now, fix the dump. Let's put it out at the RFP. Stop floating this thing around about the government going to have to invest $100 million and then we can invest $10 million in this and that and the other. Take the 5th elected member from Georgetown's suggestion, privatize the collection, not buy no more garbage trucks. And let's go out in a campaign and tell our constituency that you're going to have to pay for it. Most of them are willing to pay for it. Not exorbitant amounts, of course. But they're willing to pay. But no, you've got to be neutral. Not a caution no more. Which means you're not going to pay, you're not paying now. It's on to some undetermined amount, on to import duty. So, Mr. Speaker, I support most of the things that the Minister of Finance said in his speech. I'm sorry, I can't find anything else in the throne speech to compliment you all on. But before I move on, let me alert you to what's missing from the throne speech. No mention of one man, one vote. If we don't do it in this financial year, it's going to take us till July 2015. You know what you're going to hear then? Oh, I can't do this now before election, you know. Too much changes. Don't have time to educate these fools, Caymanians. You really can't convince them to how to cast one vote instead of 8. It's easy for them to figure out how to cast 6 in Georgetown and 4 in West Bay and 4 in Bordentown and 2 in Cayman Brack and 1 north side and 1 east end. Oh, no, they could never understand how to cast one vote. That's just too high a mountain for them to climb. Not a word about it. No commitment for minimum wage in the throne speech. Not mentioned. So, we need to know what's happening about those two very important topics. I understand the government's attempt to tell you something. The only thing more abused around here than transparency and good governance is I love you. You throw them 2 words, good governance and transparency, they're just fillers. You remember that one that used to be here for the last 4 years that had them 48 words, just kept mixing them up? Right? That's what good governance and transparency come in. But the attempt to help small business by reducing the fees, I support that. But I have one concern. Because the amount is so small, the average small business is going to have to utilize it in their business in this economy and not be able to pass it on. I think if it was a greater amount, the government could demand adjustment to prices if you were giving them 10%. On the duty concessions for people who have trade and business license in the Cayman Islands, I don't like the way the government is doing it. My preference would be that you leave it at the 15 or 20% that it is now for business. But if I want to go Miami and buy all of the material to build my house, I pay 35%. Any developer who's coming in here and wants to bring in material, etc., to build, pay 35%. And I don't think they should be allowed any duty concession whatsoever to anybody to purchase stuff overseas. The only way you should be able to get duty concession in the Cayman Islands is to purchase the product locally and claim it back from the government. Because that way you grow the economy. The Caymanian businessman then can produce volume and he doesn't lose. But when we give them people duty free and they can go anywhere and buy it and bring it in, the Caymanian businessman who's hiring Caymanians, paying pension, paying health insurance, paying fees to government, gets absolutely no benefit from it. But at the very least, if he brought it into the person, he paid the stamp, and the person applied to government to get the stamp duty, it'll increase his volume so he might get better prices, which will help the other prices. And I would invite the members of government who are involved in this small business. The manager of the Cayman Islands Development Bank, Ms. Tracy E. Banks, just did a master's thesis on the culture of small business in the Cayman Islands. It's very well done, and it's very interesting reading, and the government would do well to have conversations with her, because again, because of her banking expertise and experience, particularly in commercial credit, to get some input from her about what we can do to help small businesses. So in a committee is setting up, my recommendation was, she's a government employee, so it shouldn't be difficult to get her to come to meetings. Yeah. Eugene gave me a half hour too, you know. Eh? Oh, okay. The other thing that I like, and I congratulate the Minister of Finance on, is the idea of shifting the calculation of these ratios from government revenue to GDP. I've always believed that it was a more appropriate comparison, because when it's linked to government revenue, any downfall in government revenue can throw the whack out. And all that government does is stimulate the economy. Government doesn't get the benefit for the ratios because no revenue comes in from DART and all these other enterprises who got everything duty free and all of the fees waived. So if it's, but it grows the GDP. So you would be able to get more for the same thing. And it certainly reads better to say that the public debt is going to be 18.5% of GDP than 70-odd% of government revenue. So I congratulate you on that. I think that's the... Yeah, well, that 10%, that was leader opposition in Truman. You know, they did that to stop me and Mr. Benson, 1990. The other thing that I would invite the government to consider in talking about adjusting fuel, I think one of the things that the fuel companies get away with, in my view, is they don't have to declare the cost of their product at source. We tax them on volume, so they have no incentive to buy fuel at a cheaper source, because what they're paying the government is not based on their cost. And I think if they were treated like the rest of us, they would make more effort to get better prices at source, because we can still monitor the quality. But right now, all we know, and we calculate the duty based on volume. And I just don't think that we're getting the maximum benefit of government policy being used to influence fuel prices. And the one thing I beg the government to do, please stop calculating the unemployed percentage on the total workforce, because we know that at least 45 to 50% of those are not Caymanians. It lowers the figure, but it's not fair to the people, because we really shouldn't have any unemployed non-Caymans in this country now. If they're not working, the work permit should be cancelled, they should be gone. And least of all, should be paying them any benefits of the government treasury. The other thing I would they invite the Minister of Finance to consider is the allowance for Caymanians on return at the airport. Consider increasing it to $500, but you only get it if you produce the receipts. In other words, if you come in and you got 500 goods, although your allowance is 500 goods, but if you only got receipts for $100, that's all you get. And that's just encouraging honesty. And I think it should only be for Caymanians. I don't think residents should get it at all. Because I believe that it is time that the country start doing things for Caymanians. We do enough for other people. Now, Mr. Speaker, let me once again congratulate the government for naming the Northside Primary School the Edna M. Moyle Primary School. But now, Mr. Speaker, having done that, we have a responsibility to that worthy leader to bring the standard of the school up. The school needs, before September, 2 additional classrooms and a staff room. I think it's the only government school in the island that doesn't have a staff room. We still have temporary classroom, which is in a deplorable state. We're not talking about a lot of money. I have talked to some architectural friends and constructions, and we should be able to build that for about $120,000 $130 a square foot. And we're only talking about probably a maximum of 1,500 square feet. And we can join it on to the hall so we see one wall. So we're not talking about a whole pile of money. The other thing that the school desperately needs is a bus pickup area that allows the children to get on and off the bus without getting wet. But just to get back, Mr. Speaker, to how things get thrown out of whack and we politicians get the blame by the technocrats. About 3 months ago, and you see, Mr. Speaker, I got an advantage now. The last government locked me out of the primary school and wouldn't make the principal talk to me. But I'm secretary of the PTA now. I know what's going on now. It came up at the PTA that we had been trying for 3 or 4 years to get this bus pickup area. So I suggested to the PTA that that's not a problem. Let's take it on as a project for the PTA, because the problem, I think we can build it for less than $5,000. So we agreed. So we said to the principal, she said she had been told it was a set of plans. So I said, well, you call the education department, ask us to let's see the plans. Oh boy. The bell started to ring. I get all kind of phone calls. Well, you know, we got $25,000 in the budget this year for that. Really? Okay. Well, what about the plans? Well, we really don't have no plans, you know. We just putting in $25,000. Oh, okay. Anyway, so I went back to the EIU. I said, listen, I understand that there's some plans for this bus shelter. Can you get me a copy of them? So, lo and behold, of course, I'd been told now by the technocrats and the ministry staff that they would have them by Friday evening. Get a call Friday. Well, we can't find no plan, so that's when the discussion came up. Well, how you know it can cost $25,000? Well, you see, we're building out of aluminum and glass. Really? In Northside? That's all spray. Should last a long time. Anyway, the EIU delivered the plans to me at my house on Saturday evening. Lo and behold, beautiful facility. Nice curved glass, aluminum frame, but 50 feet away from the school. Beautiful potted plants, planters around it, nice seats for the children, but 50 feet away from the school. The bus goes 10 feet away from the school door. I said, well, this is what, oh yeah, that's what they consider. But this don't solve the problem. The children had to get wet twice. They had to get wet from the school to the bus shelter, from the bus shelter to the bus. We don't want that. And I can tear that up and throw it away. We don't want that. So I asked the technocrats to come out and let me show them how I believe. And I have this unfortunate thing that my grandfather was a carpenter and all that, and he's always trying to work himself out of me, so I just like to cut up wood. So I said, listen, all we need here is go to the water authority, ask them to give you 8 lengths of that 12-inch PVC pipe that they dig up from all the road. We need a couple lengths of 2x10, some plywood to put between it. We need 8 lengths of 2x6 for rafters, 8 foot long. We need a couple sheets of plywood. We need 15 burns of shingles. And we screw it on to the building so that the children don't get wet. And the bus drives in, picks up the children, backs out and drives away. Oh, well, now, you know, if you can do that now, you understand that public works and planning is go, you have to get engineering drawings on that now. No, you just can't put these PVC pipe up here and planning will accept that. You know, you got to put you got to put rebarbs in them, and you got to fill it up with concrete, and you got to do this. You got stick a pin. We're building a roof for the bus to drive under. If we get a hurricane, the wind can blow through. There's no walls on it. You don't need no engineering. That's all we need. But this is how politicians have to wear the blame for this kind of incompetence, stupidity. Because they're going to spend $25,000 on that bus pickup area. Mark my word. Because they've already decided that the FFR does not allow us now to give the PTA $3,000 and you get some free labor and come here and build up. No, Mr. Miller, you understand, we can't do that kind of things in government anymore. The FFR don't allow that. I don't see that in FFR.
Honorable member, you have about 14 minutes left.
Okay. We'll show them how we can build the 2 classrooms, and they think we got 8 or 5 feet between the wall and the hall. We can build it right here. All in these 6-inch blocks. Seamless roof. 125. No, Mr. Miller, you don't understand. You know, we had to build this now to hurricane, Category 5 hurricane. Really? That piece I built that in 1985. Category none. Start up now one. And this is how we waste government funds. Right? And the elected government cabinet, the ministers get the blame, because I can hold you all responsible. If you name the school the Edna M. Miles School, we have to work together to raise it up to where it is worthy to carry that name. The paper today carries some of the praise that was duly dispensed at the opening, properly said, all deserved, all earned by Ms. Edna. If we don't get those 2 classrooms and that bus shelter for September, I can accuse you all of dishonoring her name. Because we're not talking about a whole pile of money out of a 550 plus budget. So, Mr. Speaker, I like the trends that the Minister of Finance has projected. I'll do my best to help him continue on those trends, but I want us to get our share of it. The embargo on our side, because I'm not a member of the PPM, got stopped. The only piece of arterial road in the Cayman Islands that is not hot mix is Rum Pint Drive, which is used daily by hundreds of tourists and residents alike. We're doing some of it in this budget. I will be fighting in Finance Committee to get it completed in the next financial year. I'm asking you all for your support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I acknowledge the Honorable Minister of Tourism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to offer my congratulations to Her Excellency, the Governor, Mrs. Helen Kilpatrick, CB, on her throne speech of 2014. I'd also like to congratulate the Honorable Premier, Alden McLaughlin, on his policy statement, Roadmap to Prosperity, and the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Marco Archer, on his budget address. Mr. Speaker, I believe that they were well done, and I believe that the country received them well, and from all the feedback I've got, it's starting to vibrate what they've said, and as the debate goes on, more and more of it will be articulated. I'd also like to acknowledge, Mr. Speaker, Father Joseph Kirkconnell, the leader of the opposition, so rightly did in his contribution, the proudness from the community and from the family, from the country, and also the soon-to-be Father Abbott, another young Caymanian, for the ordination that took place last week for Joseph, and for Father Abbott will take place this Saturday. Mr. Speaker, in October last year, during my budget address, I spoke at length about the specific initiatives, policies, and programs that would be implemented during the 2013-14 fiscal year in the areas which I hold constitutional responsibility for, namely district administration, tourism, and transport. Mr. Speaker, I stated at that time, I believed my primary responsibility is to improve the quality of life for all Caymanians, and expressed my commitment to improving efficiency, deriving greater value for money, and facilitating the sustainable development of Cayman Brac, Little Cayman, and the tourism industry. I still hold firm to those beliefs, and I'm keenly aware that my role as a policymaker is to create a stable, robust, and well-regulated environment that attracts investment and development and serves as a solid foundation to encourage entrepreneurship and the creation of job opportunities. In my contribution today, I'll speak to the outcomes of these initiatives and will provide a comprehensive appraisal of how my ministry is moving forward. Mr. Speaker, despite experiencing setbacks and turbulence resulting from the knock-on effects of the recession, the global travel and tourism industry is still one of the world's fastest-growing economic sectors. According to the World Travel Organization, in 2012, global travel reached a historic milestone whereby 1 billion people traveled in a single year. In 2013, global travel grew a further 5%, representing an additional 52 million international tourists. Here in the Cayman Islands, the tourism industry also recorded strong growth. In 2013, ending the year at 7.4% ahead of 2012. Air arrivals in 2013 were the highest since 2001, and I'm pleased to report that the upward momentum has continued throughout the first quarter of 2014. January, March, and April of this year recorded the highest air arrivals since 2000, and a year-to-date increase of 9.5% was registered for the first 4 months of 2014. Additionally, each of our source market countries registered positive gains for the first 4 months of 2014 compared to the same period in 2013. This translates, Mr. Speaker, to a 6.2% increase from the United States, 10% increase from Canada year over year, and the other markets as well have grown in similar proportion. Cruise results, the tourism industry comprises of more than one sector, and while any kind of positive growth is welcomed, we have become accustomed in recent years to stayover arrivals going up, while cruise visitation goes down. Just over 1.3 million cruise passengers visited the Cayman Islands in 2013, representing a decrease of 8.7% from 2012. But Mr. Speaker, in 2014, cruise passenger arrivals are expected to increase by over 300,000 passengers to around 1.65 million, and further growth is forecast for 2015 to yield 1,900,000 arriving on our shores by cruise vessel. The last time we saw anything close to this number of cruise passengers was in 2006. For a country like ours, which uses tourism statistics as a barometer of our economic well-being, the prognosis is encouraging, and the future looks bright, with increases in both stayover and cruise passenger arrivals on the horizon. This is the first time in several years that both sectors will register positive increases within the same year. But I should stress that these increases are the result of the slower economic recovery in Europe and unstable areas in other parts of the world, along with the government working with the cruise lines to encourage more visitors. It should not be construed by members of this honorable House or by the public that the berthing facility is not required. Nor should it be assumed that passenger arrivals can be sustained at this level without it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the interim, while the necessary processes are being followed for construction of the berthing facility, various amenities have been put in place in Georgetown Cruise Terminal. The surrounding areas to improve the port experience for all arriving passengers by cruise. And these include, Mr. Speaker, the installation of shading to provide protection from the sun and rain, the provision of benches and signage, strategic locations. Bathroom facilities are now being constructed to be completed in the next few weeks in Georgetown, which was desperately needed in the capital where the passengers arrive. The embarkation and disembarkation processes are being improved to give visitors the best experience possible with the tools that we have to work with. Mr. Speaker, cruise lines take a keen interest in the port experience to ensure their passengers have a safe and enjoyable visit, and their customer satisfaction ratings remain high for our island as a destination. It is therefore in our interest as a cruise destination to make sure that we provide a convenient, pleasurable, and entertaining passenger experience. Judging by the positive results and the forecasted growth in visitation over the next 2 years, it is easy to get a little carried away on a wave of optimism, Mr. Speaker, thinking that the road ahead is all successes. But unfortunately, that is not the case. While it is true that increased revenue derived from the tourism sector has been vital in helping our islands wrestle our way out of the economic stranglehold brought on by the recession, we are not out of the woods yet, Mr. Speaker. Although there are good reasons to be optimistic about the future, we must continue to ensure that every dollar spent delivers maximum benefit and value for the people of the Cayman Islands. With that said, I'm confident that the course that this progressive government has set and the partnerships being achieved with private sector will ensure that tourism industry continues to be a major source of growth in our economy and a significant contributor to our GDP. Mr. Speaker, servicing the current rate of arrivals is a good problem to have, while planning for the future growth requires the redevelopment of all of our ports of entry. In the case of Owen Roberts International Airport, the congestion and overcrowding during peak travel times provides an embarrassing first and last impression and is not the kind of welcome our visitors deserve or expect from a cosmopolitan and sophisticated vacation destination that thrives on Caymankind. The Owen Roberts Airport commenced its commercial operations back in 1952, which was well before tourism was an industry to speak of. On that basis, it is not surprising that the existing infrastructure is ill-equipped to handle today's volume of passengers, which currently stands at 1 million passenger movements per year and comprises of tourists and business visitors as well as residential travelers. Mr. Speaker, with 2 record-breaking years on the horizon and the reasonable expectation of future growth, improving customer experience is both critical and time-sensitive. To address immediate needs over the medium term, vital upgrades have been completed to provide more comfort and convenience to travelers. While permanent solutions can be identified and managed, the increasing passenger quotas. The substandard traveler experience due to inefficient or inadequate facilities is regrettably not confined just to the Owen Roberts Airport. Therefore, by necessity, all of our airports require redevelopment. In Little Cayman, the airport sits on privately owned property and has a roadway and electrical utility lines and mature vegetation, all in close proximity to the runway. While this may be viewed by some as being quaint, attractive, and in keeping with a smaller island experience, it is not compliant with aviation regulations and must be addressed from the perspective of safety. Mr. Speaker, with this as a backdrop, my ministry is duty-bound to rectify these anomalies so that our airports can operate at an appropriate and acceptable standard. Time is of the essence, and we're moving ahead as swiftly as possible. On Thursday last week, the business case and master plan for Phase 1, outlining PwC's analysis and recommendations, was presented to caucus for consideration. Mr. Speaker, my good friend from North Side gets a lot of information from a thing called EIU. Mr. Speaker, I would say to him that a lot of the information he gets is wrong. And I would also tell him, because he's my good friend, I'd fire him because they're not giving you the right information. The business case calls for a RIA, Owen Roberts International Airport, to be expanded in a way that can be afforded by this country. It doesn't call for privatization. It calls for debt service that can be paid out of the profits that the Cayman Island Airport Authority make.
So that's a sacred cow then? That's not part of the rationalization process. That's a sacred cow. Even the airport.
Mr. Speaker, the business case for Owen Roberts was started before the E&Y study. And it is our intention to move as quickly as we can possibly move to improve the situation at the airport. And I believe that each one of us have been through there and have seen the improvements that have been made over the last 6 months, and to continue to see the improvements as we prepare ourselves to receive the most visitors that we've ever received in our peak season. You'll see improvement in the departure processes. You will see improvement in the arrival processes. You'll see improvement with immigration. You'll see improvement with customs. So we clearly understand, Mr. Speaker, that it's a flow. You arrive on a plane, we're an island. You come by plane or boat. You arrive on a plane, you get off the plane, you have to be managed, you have to provide access, you get bottles of water, you get good musicians, they'll play the song you want, and we've increased the number of immigration officers that process you through. Customs is now improving the flow through, and transport on the other side. Same thing is beginning to happen as you see the walkways being closed in by the departing area. And we have great confidence in the short-term plan to move as quickly as possible. And as the business case, the next step in the process is to seek Cabinet's approval, which will clear the way for public consultation. A series of public and private sector stakeholder meetings will be planned. And at the completion of the consultation process, the final document will be returned to Cabinet for approval. So I'm hopeful that this request for proposal for the architectural and engineering design can be released in August, and the tender awarded in September. The goal will be to commence construction of the new expansion in early 2015. The short-term improvements have begun with the new covered arrival area and extra immigration. The covered walkways are under construction, and work will start in the next month on the short-term expanded departure areas. Mr. Speaker, the Georgetown Port. This is another area of that, what's that called? The EIU, another EIU report. The Georgetown Port is another business case that is progressing, and I want to refocus the attention that my friend again gave the Georgetown Port, because it's a bigger picture to look at than just the piers themselves. This is looking at how we support the long-term sustainable growth in the cruise tourism industry in the Cayman Islands. This is not about building piers. This is about providing the environment and the infrastructure for success for generations to come, and increasing the amount of cruise visitors that we manage, cruise arrivals and air arrivals, in a very manageable way. It is also a fact that the business case had looked at this, and when they did, they narrowed it down to 3 options. One option was status quo with improvements, very similar to what the EIU information and your opinions are. Nothing wrong with it at all. The second one was phased 2 piers, 1 pier now, and a second pier when demand came. And the third option was 2 piers now, built at the same time, and a consideration to move cargo. The numbers and the research that was done in the business case, selected option is therefore to build 2 piers, and if needed, relocate cargo. They estimated that if we remain the status quo, where we have to go is from 1.6 million cruise visitors this year to eventually decreasing the cruise visitation to around 1 million because of the regional competition of a new pier that takes Oasis class vessels in Falmouth, a rebuild in Ocho Rios, an improvement in Montego Bay, new piers in Roatan, and then with Cuba opening at some point in time and with large facilities there, how are we, as a prime destination in the Western Caribbean, going to be the only one that you tender ashore to? Mr. Speaker, this third option that was the recommendation and is the pursued course analyzes that we would balance out at 2.3 million visitors in a systematic way over the next 8 to 10 years, which would give our industry time to prepare and work in a managed way with the people that arrive. And right. And I will say this, Mr. Speaker, this is much like the plan that the last 2 governments have had. So I would say this government looks at projects, looks at improvements, and it doesn't matter to this government that somebody else has been involved with it are started. If it's something that is good for this country, we work hard, we follow the process, and we move it as quickly as we possibly can. Mr. Speaker, construction of the berthing facility will by necessity influence the revitalization of Georgetown, as will the rebuild of Oriah. By moving the flow of pedestrians to provide safer and unrestricted access to shops and amenities, a traffic analysis is currently underway as part of the cruise berthing environmental impact assessment to provide pertinent information on existing and proposed road usage. The study will also outline the optimum means for pedestrianizing the harborfront area while keeping the character and heritage of our capital city intact. Mr. Speaker, for tourism to bolster and transform our economy, it must be geographically dispersed to ensure that the benefits are distributed throughout all the Cayman Islands, including Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. In keeping with our standing as a leading tourism destination, the accommodation sector is benefiting from substantial investments, which are translated into the refurbishment of existing facilities, the expansion of capacity, and the addition of new properties to augment our mature product base. Mr. Speaker, by way of a brief update, the old Hyatt premises on West Bay Road is finally being redeveloped to start in November of this year. On completion, the property will be rebranded as a part of a major hotel chain. The Grand Cayman Beach Suites are adding 2 additional stories to their existing property, creating additional rooms, deluxe suites. This will boost their room count. On completion, that property will also, Mr. Speaker, be rebranded. I'm not at liberty to reveal the identities of the new hotel partners, as it would be inappropriate to make those announcements in the absence of the entities concerned, Mr. Speaker. But what I can say is that we have 2 powerful brands coming to our islands that we don't have here now, and discussions have begun with an extremely well-known and influential third. Along with these developments, the Kimpton is still on track to welcome its first guests in 2016. And on the eastern side of Grand Cayman, 2 new hotel properties are planned to come on stream over the next 2 to 3 years. One will service the Shetty Hospital, and the other is completely separate entity. This, along with the opening of the Londoner Wing expansion at Maritz Club and the continued building of the Maritz Club. And I must brag a little bit on my good friend East End, the opening at the Maritz the other night. It is true, a Caymanized management team that did a fantastic job. Manager, Mr. Miller, and his deputy, Mr. Connolly, welcomed everybody. The facility is absolutely gorgeous. It's a tribute to East End. It's a tribute to this country, and it's full, which is, I know, very important to the member from East End, that it creates a lot of employment out there and it creates a lot of goodwill for that eastern end of the island. So kudos to them. Also, we know that the Reef Resort is doing quite well, and it's being rebranded as a Wyndham, and that should take effect next year, Mr. Speaker. They also are involved in some upgrades and the things that they have to do to comply with the brand. And still on the eastern side of Grand Cayman, government has signed a non-binding memorandum agreeing to principal construction of a $360 million development covering 600 acres. This proposed Ironwood community will feature a mix of commercial, tourism, and residential development, and includes the first Arnold Palmer 18-hole golf course in the Caribbean, reinforcing our reputation in the Cayman Islands as a trend-setting and unique destination. The slew of activity is welcomed and encouraging and represents a firm and decisive step forward in the development of our accommodation sector. The variety of projects and sizable investments speak to the confidence investors have in our jurisdiction and should be construed as yet another indication that our tourism industry is successfully rebounding. From an industry standpoint, the new hotel properties will strengthen our marketing muscle, which in turn will expand our ability to attract visitors looking for a memorable vacation experience. I cannot understate the importance of keeping heads in beds, as every unoccupied room has a cost. It's perishable, not just to the hotelier, but also to the taxi drivers, the restaurants, and the scores of small businesses and vendors who depend on this industry for their livelihoods. Additional room stock accentuates the need for additional airlift, Mr. Speaker, and as the Premier has alluded, we are fortunate to have our own national carrier supporting the tourism and economic development strategies of the country. The Department of Tourism and Cayman Airways are already working together and targeting the most advantageous markets that will deliver the greatest returns to the sector. For Cayman Airways, this means that the national interest is always given priority over the company's own profit, which makes the airline a valuable tool for achieving economic growth. In addition to servicing major markets, planning more strategically allows us to service the lucrative gateways that other airlines are not, and bolster our ability to traverse the routes that are more closely aligned to our tourism development. Mr. Speaker, for example, New York is the single largest source of tourists to the Cayman Islands. It's grown by 16.3%. Chicago has grown by 37%. And Dallas, bolstered by the introduction of twice-weekly service, has grown by 147%. Giving credit where it is due, there's no doubt that using Cayman Airways as a strategic tool has significantly contributed to outstanding increases that have been registered in stayover visitation. It is, Mr. Speaker, good business when you build a route and you invest in the route, and it gives the best return on investment for your country. Example being New York. Visitors spend on average $6,000 a week. The last government understood the principle, Mr. Speaker, of using Cayman Airways, as did the government before the last government. So we are building on successes of the governments before us in a prudent way for this country. Cayman Airways employs more than 300 Caymanians and strives to attract and develop the best and the brightest talent by offering several unique employment opportunities in specialized fields that if they weren't Caymanian and if they weren't here, the jobs would not be available. It will continue to create an environment of opportunity for Caymanians under this government, Mr. Speaker. This has a tremendous socioeconomic impact on our islands and makes a significant contribution to national development and growth. The airline will therefore, as it continues to target operational efficiencies, do so in a manner that places emphasis on the retention and provision of services and employment locally versus overseas. While Cayman Airways has succeeded in growing its revenue by over $3.1 million in the first 10 months of 2013-14 year through April, there have also been challenges which the board and management are working diligently to address. Despite increases in fuel and other operating costs, some of which were unanticipated, total costs have risen by only $500,000 to date. I'm pleased to note that over and above all the other positives I have mentioned, the airline is on track to finish this year or near its best financial performance in the last 15 years. In line with the objective of working together, my ministry is also looking at ways to work closely with the Tourism Attractions Board, which manages some of our island's most notable attractions. These include Pedro St. James, Queen Elizabeth Botanic Park, Craft Market, and Pirates Week Festival, and Hell. While each of these attractions has their own unique appeal, the focus of this collaboration effort is to develop a range of co-branded tours to increase their collective visibility. Repackaging the product offering in this manner, Mr. Speaker, will enhance the visitor experience by adding an attractive new twist to the range of available excursions, and will increase each attraction's ability to benefit from higher visitor volumes and spend. Mr. Speaker, one of the other subjects I have in my ministry is the turtle farm. And looking more specifically, I'm pleased to report that despite the negative attention in some international circles, the turtle farm still ranks as our #1 land-based attraction. On an annual basis, more than 200,000 visitors are welcomed to its wildlife encounter, and more than 2,000 students visit its research and educational facility. For the upcoming fiscal year, the turtle farm will receive an equity injection funding of $9.5 million, which, Mr. Speaker, is $790,000 less, $790,000 less than the subsidy paid by government in 2013-14. It should be noted that more than 50% of this subsidy, or approximately $6 million, is required to service the turtle farm's debt and interest payments, and the remainder is used to fund the shortfall between revenue and expenses. As a result of various initiatives undertaken by management, significant increases in revenue are forecast from the sale of food and beverage and gift shop sales. The repayment of the debt is a critical component of the government's fiscal strategy, and I'm pleased to see that the turtle farm's debt is steadily decreasing and is forecast to reduce $4.3 million in this fiscal year. Additionally, an economic impact study conducted by a leading international firm determined that the turtle farm contributes more positive macroeconomic impact than the amount of the operating subsidy it receives from the public purse. Moreover, it sustains hundreds of jobs in the local economy, direct and indirect. 100+ work at the farm, and they support tour operators, visitors, taxi drivers, so it spreads out and multiplies into hundreds of jobs that depend on the turtle farm for a living. Turtle farm is an important and valued element of the Cayman Islands tourism product, and its conservation and commercial farming operation continues to play an essential role in the facilitation and preservation of our island's culture. For 500 years, the consumption of turtle meat has been an integral and established part of the local diet, and having a legal source of production via the turtle farm greatly reduces the poaching in the wild. Mr. Speaker, from a ministerial perspective, our focus is to ensure that the Cayman Turtle Farm maintains a safe and humane animal environment, provides its guests with a high-quality, enjoyable, responsible tourism experience, and I believe there's value in its green sea turtle research and conservation program, and I remain supportive of the role it plays in preserving our island's unique cultural heritage and traditions, but understand that we must work to increase revenue, manage costs, and I'm pleased to say again, that the subsidy has been reduced by almost 800,000 CI dollars, or $1 million US dollars, which is due to the hard work, the management, and the new board in pushing it in the right direction. Speaking of traditions, I'm reminded of the rich maritime heritage for which our islands have been known across the globe. Plying the seas, whether for trade or recreation, has featured heavily in our island's past, and still today, scores of local boat operators depend on the ocean for their living. I'm therefore pleased to say that over $3.5 million worth of renovations have been done to the Safe Haven Marina. It's fully operational with 20 local boat operators who have now moved in. The new facility is a tremendous improvement over that which existed previously and includes purpose-built slips, ample parking, changing rooms, and a waiting area for visitors. The new facility was officially opened Tuesday, the 27th of May, and is expected to bring additional income and employment opportunities to the boat operators, the North Sound operators, and others in the industry. Mr. Speaker, there are no magic formulas to drive visitation to the Cayman Islands. Rather, our success is due to the combined efforts of the Department of Tourism, Cayman Airways, private sector entities, and the ministry working together, marketing to tourists and making it easy for them to get here. The Department of Tourism is constantly thinking of new and innovative ways to promote our island, to entice tourists and their families to visit this beautiful place that we call home. Consistent marketing, advertising, and PR within our source markets builds awareness and demand for the destination and key contributors to sustaining increased arrivals. Over the last 6 years, the DOT's budget has consistently been reduced and is now $10 million less than it was in 2008. The reduction in funding has reached a level where it is critically impacting the effectiveness of in-market advertising, as well as collaborations with trade and industry partners such as travel agents, dive shops, wholesalers, and airlines. And Mr. Speaker, these are the kind of marketing dollars that don't show up this year. They are the marketing dollars that build repeat visits. They're the marketing dollars that bring people next year. They're the marketing dollars that we depend on to continue freshening our product. And in spite of the cuts year over year, the Department of Tourism identified key partners that continue to provide the best return for the reduced investments and have developed ways of working more closely with them. This has made our partners more accountable than ever for every dollar that we invest with them. The DOT is working harder to develop affinity partnerships, which secure more reciprocal co-op dollars from wholesale partners, increases the awareness among consumers and agents, and translates into room nights at our hotels, customers for our attractions, and diners at our restaurants. To truly benefit from the promise of tourism, the attributes of our country must be accessible and affordable to a wide cross-section of the global traveling population. The DOT has strengthened its relationships with airline partners, including their vacation arms, that offer packages which fill airline seats bundled with room nights in the Cayman Islands. The department has also gone deeper into organizations to forge better relationships with route planners and revenue managers. As a result, they're able to more strategic and proactive in developing tactics and promotions that deliver satisfactory load factors for airline carriers, which are the lifeblood of the tourism industry and our economy. Mr. Speaker, with constantly reducing budgets, the Department of Tourism is trying its best to be tactical and protecting the advertising funds which it uses to build destination awareness and demand in our key source markets. In doing so, this flexibility to sponsor events that showcase the destination has become limited, and as a result, the department has adapted to reviewing all the sponsorship programs against new benchmarks for success and ROI, and is concentrating its efforts on improving the ones that have proven to work best for our destination. While the number of event sponsorships will be reduced next year, those that remain will support key niche markets such as culinary, romance, dive, fishing, and sports tourism. For example, the annual Cayman Cookout not only attracts incremental visitors to our islands, but over the years has helped to solidify our positioning as the culinary capital of the Caribbean. In the area of romance, I'm pleased to announce that the Engage 14 Luxury Wedding Summit will be returning to Grand Cayman. This event typically attracts over 350 attendees. The dive industry, which represents an important and growing segment within the tourism industry, continues to receive support, important for events such as DEMA, which increases awareness of our island as one of the foremost diving destinations in the world, with moorings in place all over the islands of 365 sites. The Cayman Islands is now able to offer a different dive experience for every day. This catapults our dive product well ahead of the region, and along with the Kitty Wake and the KP Tibbets, will continue to drive interest and demand. Over to the sister islands, Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Mr. Speaker, the emphasis on increasing job opportunities remains a priority, along with the development of infrastructure to sustainably support tourism and sporting opportunities. I'm pleased to report that over the course of the last fiscal year, progress has been made in both those crucial areas, job creation and infrastructure, and will continue throughout the new budget year. Dealing first with jobs, Mr. Speaker, the Cayman Airways Reservation Center on Cayman Brac is now fully operational, and in conjunction with the new cargo facility, offers services that will add long-term sustainability to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. 4 permanent positions have been created, and more will be required in due course. Mr. Speaker, very exciting announcement for Cayman Brac and Little Cayman is that a business case was directed by the board to be done by Cayman Airways management, and it is the opinion of Cayman Airways management that a large turbo airplane would be of benefit for travelers between Grand Cayman and Cayman Brac. Farther, the Saab 340 appears to be the preferred choice for the service and is expected to improve the operational results of the domestic service. Mr. Speaker, the board has instructed management to review the availability of a plane like this and to see if it could be available to be put in service in late August or September for when the express planes go up for their checks and are usually out for around 3 months. So that would certainly improve the service over there. But a revamped schedule, and it is our belief that an improved air service into Cayman Brac will greatly benefit the tourism product and the friends and family market with a way to get there that can be depended on. So I'm very happy to be able to share that with you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister, is this a convenient time for you to take a break, or you'll finish in due course?
I'll finish in probably another 5-10 minutes.
Please continue.
Upgrades at the Charles Kirkconnell Airport are in progress, and the installation of new baggage screening equipment is expected to be completed by the end of summer. Once this is in place, Cayman Brac will meet international standards, and flights will be able to fly directly to the United States. This will also give opportunity to service Eastern Cuba, which is a lucrative market that is currently unserviced. These new flights will create more jobs in retail, airport security, and ground handling around the airport. In January, the General Registry established presence in Cayman Brac to make it easier for companies operating in the sister islands to make payments, file annual returns, and request certificates of good standing and incorporation. In addition to eliminating the inconvenience for business owners having to travel to Grand Cayman for such purposes. Government has also reduced the trade and business license fee for small business based in Cayman Brac by 75%, Mr. Speaker. It's a welcomed initiative that is designed to support the creation of new jobs. A provision has been made for a new Marine Police Unit to be established in Cayman Brac to protect the borders of the sister islands, patrol the shorelines, and should create 3 new jobs. Earlier this year, 2 magnificent sailing ships carrying roughly 150 passengers each called on Cayman Brac as part of their scheduled itineraries. The visits brought together artisans and merchants to provide a warm welcome to the tourists, along with a craft market type experience, and was followed by island tours and cave excursions organized by district administration for their enjoyment. As well as being a welcomed addition to the tourism landscape, the visits provided a healthy injection of cash into the local economy and proved that the sister islands are the perfect venue to handle visits on this scale. Both ships have indicated that based on the overwhelming success of their initiative, they're keen to return in the future, and the star vessels have put Cayman Brac on the itinerary for next year. The government has also negotiated for ships from the United States Coast Guard to visit the Cayman Islands, and we hope to attract a few of those ships to Cayman Brac for an R&R visit, which will also help boost the local economy. Mr. Speaker, earlier this year, government delivered on its commitment to improve the facilities of Cayman Brac playing field, to facilitate the creation of sports tourism related opportunities. Mr. Speaker, again, my friend from Northside doesn't understand. Yeah, you didn't report this. This was him. He doesn't understand how sports tourism generates money in the economy and how we would hope to recoup spending $800,000. Here is just a simple example for you. In August, 4 teams will be there for 8 days in a CONCACAF tournament, 4 teams. That's 150 people that would not have come there. They're going to spend an average of $2,000 each one of them. So $300,000 is what it's going to generate. And when you look at the multiplier there, that's yeah. The other part that is
Order.
Yeah. See, the other part that escapes you is that you have to take a bridge to Cayman Brac, which there's not one, right? You can't drive there like you can north side, so you enjoy all of the progress and all of the things from CONCACAF here. So that's why we have to do separate facilities. And I know, but I know that you're happy that Cayman Brac is getting this. You just want more for north side. I know what it is. I know you're happy for Cayman Brac.
When you return the $300,000 and get it from our side, which will be added for next year. Will not come back. It'll be the first time in history your investment return from Cayman Brac.
In addition to the FIFA-certified artificial turf that my friend is so happy that we have, which was installed during the last progressive administration. Upgrades at the site include fencing, bleachers, tents, flagpoles, changing rooms, and restrooms. The provision for these amenities means Cayman Brac is now well equipped to host sporting events that will drive incremental visitation, which is so important for sustaining a vibrant tourism industry. In recent years, our country has focused on the development of sports tourism opportunities, resulting in the successful hosting of a wide cross-section of regional and international sporting events, having proven that our islands possesses the required infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, talent, and expertise to skillfully manage such events. It follows that sports tourism opportunities should be channeled where possible to increase arrivals during the traditionally slower months between August and October. An example of this, again, is the under-15 tournament for the Cayman Islands. 4 teams will be in Cayman Brac, and 12 teams will be here in Grand Cayman. Sale of airline seats, increasing hotel occupancy, and the multiplier effect passes down all the way through the economy. From a visitation perspective, it is commonplace for attendees at sporting events to pass on glowing personal endorsements to family and friends that often translates into repeat visitation, which is another added benefit. Mr. Speaker, I want to finish this, but I can't. If you just give me 5 minutes and I'll finish, okay? I can't hear you talking so loud.
Order.
Outside of football, the Department of Tourism is currently in discussions with marathon organizers, wedding planners, and the Angling Club to expand fishing tournaments in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. The Ministry and Department of Tourism continue to support the main tourist attractions of diving and nature as it encourages a variety of events in the sister islands, including Bracanel, Brac Bash, and Cook-Off, Little Cayman Cook-Off, and Pirates Week. The aim of promoting these activities is twofold. For visitors, the goal is to encourage sister island day trips, either to participate in an event or simply to get more from the Cayman Islands vacation by visiting another island. On the residential side, the population of 55,000 provides a captive travel market that can easily be stimulated to encourage travel to the sister islands. The increasing popular annual Cayman Brac Agriculture Show is just one example of a sister island event attended by Grand Cayman residents. Mr. Speaker, there is also talk of a marina and another boat dock and another improvement, 3 projects for Cayman Brac. One that has received a government motion, resolve. I'm happy to report that the Cayman Brac Environmental Oversight Committee has been established. It is committee members are Mr. Bernard Tibbetts, Mr. Carnell Burke, Mr. Kenny Ryan, the Deputy District Commissioner, Mr. Mark Tibbetts, Director of Planning, Director of Environment, and the Environment Designate, Department of Environment Designate. And also, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to say that 2 additional members have been appointed for a short period of time to the Development Control Board, enabling these applications about the Dilbert Marina to be heard. They are now appointed, and I assume in the next few days the applications will be heard. So we're very happy to see the progress with this and hope that this will start as a project shortly. Sister Islands Affordable Homes has proposed to start the building of 4 homes in the next 30 days, and it'll be built on the West End site where the homes are built now. The government is also in the process of installing 12,300 feet of water main pipelines, the North Coast, up to the West End Primary School, with smaller diameter pipelines being installed from the mains. This will provide pipe water to about 110 developments, such as houses, apartment complexes, restaurants, and businesses. The Water Authority also plans to clear and fill their new location on the bluff to prepare for the eventual development of another Cayman Brac Waterworks facility. Government also continues to work with the developers of the marinas, as I've already mentioned. Mr. Speaker, Little Cayman traditionally enjoys a more vibrant and stable tourism market, continues to lead the two islands market. While there has been a slight dip in occupancy, visitation is still high, with the world-famous Bloody Bay Wall, diving, and strong stakeholders. Ever popular for diving and romantic getaways, the DOT is actively marketing the sister islands as the perfect destination for encore weddings and honeymoons. Prior to the start of Engage 14 Wedding Summit, which takes place in Grand Cayman, sister island properties that are interested in hosting weddings and honeymoons will be invited to participate in a seminar with some of the world's top influencers to learn how they can engage in this profitable market. Mr. Speaker, increasing emphasis on sound fiscal management has led to a greater scrutiny of expenditure and tighter controls on the public purse. An examination of the annual plan and estimates will show that significant reductions have been made to the ministry's overall budget fiscal year. Effects to achieve savings have been carefully considered so that vital services and programs are not compromised to the extent where they become dysfunctional. Rather, efforts have been underway to implement cost savings in every possible area, and resources have been redirected for maximum benefit. In Cayman Brac, for example, where the need is to stimulate the economy is greater than ever before, funding to support government and administrative services has actually increased by $300,000. This is offset by reductions in travel-related expenses resulting from government's new policy governing business-related travel. The Hospitality School, having discussed results, strategies, and infrastructural development, I believe I have demonstrated that steady progress is being achieved, and there are solid reasons to be optimistic about the future. As a travel destination, we have made great strides, Mr. Speaker, and in many respects, we're trending ahead of our major competitors. As the second pillar of our economy, tourism is the catalyst that channels revenue into government coffers and drives a steady flow of imports, which are necessary for the service industry. Outside of its contribution to the economy, I firmly believe that tourism must also be used far more decisively as a tool which also drives entrepreneurs and keeps revenue multiplying at all levels throughout our communities. At face value, our arrival statistics paint an outstanding picture, but if we take an honest look beneath the surface, we must acknowledge that there is a real divide in our country between the picture presented by our growth rates and the reality represented by living conditions of some of our citizens. In other words, in order for our outstanding arrivals to truly be meaningful as a barometer of our country's well-being, they must translate into real and sustainable jobs for our people. Because if the benefits from record-breaking arrivals are not trickling down to small business owners and craft vendors and taxi operators and the like, then we are merely skirting around the edges of opportunity. And our efforts are seriously missing the mark where it counts the most, Mr. Speaker. Our people are our most valuable asset, and yet it is evident that Caymanians, particularly our young people, are not sharing in the industry's success to the extent that they should be. The Cayman Islands Hospitality School Program will address deficiency by providing the training necessary to shift the balance and qualify Caymanians to perform in the roles which are predominantly undertaken by expatriate workers. Mr. Speaker, plans are in place to enroll over 25 students into the first semester in September, and we have high hopes for their successful integration into the industry at the completion of their studies. Equipping these bright and ambitious young people to benefit personally and economically from the industry's success is its own reward. But our aim is to have the students placed where they can tangibly interact with visitors and infuse more authenticity and a distinct local quality to the tourism sector that our visitors want and deserve. To arrive at this juncture, the Ministry of Tourism has worked in close partnership with the Ministry of Education, Hospitality School Advisory Council, which comprises representatives from UCCI and the private sector. Cayman Island Tourism Association has been invaluable in the partnership. And our budget for next year is over $400,000 that we have pledged to this, Mr. Speaker, for these students, with the idea that in a partnership, as I've named, we can get them not only in the classroom, but also into the businesses themselves and let them enjoy the tourism product and see that it's a tremendous opportunity for employment and success. Since taking office, this progressive government has restored confidence and credibility in our country, Mr. Speaker. And as the Premier has stated, the world is finally willing to listen to the good story we have to tell. The solid foundation which we have laid and which will undoubtedly be fortified throughout our term in office is already providing the impetus for growth, confidence, and investment. With respect to tourism, the world is a much more accessible place. Travelers are more discerning, markets are more diverse, and the competitive arena is more competitive than ever. Going forward, the interests of both cruise and stayover tourism will be developed in tandem, as they each play separate yet distinct roles in the long-term growth and sustainability of our tourism industry. Our goal, therefore, in building both is to reduce our dependency on one versus the other and create more opportunities, more jobs, and more prosperity for our islands, Mr. Speaker. Greek philosophy teaches that the only thing constant is change. As the world changes around us, if we are to stay ahead of the game, we must become more pioneering, more proactive, and more tactical when planning for the future, while remaining agile, flexible to adapt to change. Mr. Speaker, change sometimes comes with challenge, but within every challenge is an opportunity to strike out boldly in a new direction. Over the last 12 months, few, if any, stones have been left unturned in the quest to deliver innovative, cost-effective, and creative solutions to some of the most pressing tourism-related needs. The tourism industry is synergetic, and with government laying a solid foundation for manageable and sustainable growth, I encourage the private sector and entrepreneurs to explore new business opportunities, particularly those that are consistent with the economic diversification and opportunities that we are bringing with the growth in the tourism sector. Mr. Speaker, Councillor Joey Hugh, who I want to say is a tremendous councillor, a big part of this government, and an extremely important tool to the tourism product of this country. We have gone to great lengths to break down the silos between internal departments, statutory authorities, practitioners, and end users. Furthermore, we have welcomed and encouraged open and forthright dialogue between the public and stakeholders. This is to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that the best ideas and opportunities can be deliberated in an unobstructive environment and adequately supported while they take hold and mature. I believe that this level of interconnectivity and communication provides a far more effective structure for working together and will deliver more clarity, more partnerships, more collaboration, and better results. Mr. Speaker, my vision for a better Cayman Islands starts with the recognition that we each have the right to enjoy a decent life, sharing justly in the resources of our country. In keeping with the aspiration, we each also have a role to play in creating an enabling environment for the industry of our country. Under the policies of the progressive government, and that's each member here, and I want to say, Mr. Speaker, to you as well, it's a pleasure to work with this government and the confidence that I'm so fortunate to have to see how they work and how hard they work for this country and know where their heart is every day. It makes you want to do more. I believe our tourism industry is in the most capable hands we could entrust it to. And I'm confident we will continue to steer the industry towards growth, prosperity, and a sustainable future. Mr. Speaker, it's been an honor today to outline the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism, Transport plans. I'm also happy to say that Councillor Hugh will not only deal with some of the specific areas, but talk a lot about transport and the opportunities and the new jobs that are being created there, again, by the growth. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank all the members of my ministry and the statutory authorities that are under my ministry for all their hard work and all their help with the success that we've had. Thank you very much.
I now call on the Honourable Premier for the adjournment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased that we have made such good progress today. 4 members have spoken. I would ask my colleagues present and the opposition who are absent to please turn up on time tomorrow morning. And if we can get started on time, we can progress. We may even get 5 speakers in tomorrow, and we can get through this part of the process as swiftly as possible, get to Finance Committee, and get through the budget approval process. With those few words, Mr. Speaker, I move the adjournment of this Honourable House until 10 a.m. tomorrow, Friday, 30th of May at 10 a.m.
The question is that this Honourable House now do adjourn until tomorrow, Friday, 10 a.m., May the 30th. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. This Honourable House do stand adjourned until tomorrow at 10 a.m.